Welcome to another edition, Litigation Psychology Podcast. Dr. Bill Kanasky. I am tired. Wow. Got in at midnight last night from Detroit. Not going to talk too much about Detroit. The weather was bad. I'll leave it at that. Not my favorite place to be doing a mock trial, but success. Hey, that's what we're here for. My very brief rant before I bring on our great guest today, Shane Odell. The reptile folks are now spreading the word that what I'm doing with witnesses is I'm teaching them how to be evasive. Okay, that's not what I teach, folks. No. I teach them how to recognize these ridiculous reptile traps. I teach the witnesses how to recognize manipulation tactics, and I teach the witness how to effectively deal with those tactics. So you can call it evasiveness all you want. The fact of the matter is it works, and they're not happy with me. That's fine. Oh, by the way, welcome plaintiff attorneys. Welcome to our audience, number one. But number two, plaintiff attorneys, welcome. Getting more and more of those. They email me. I like to diversify the audience. I think that's tremendous. Shane Odell, he's the boss over at Name and Howell in Fort Worth. And Shane, how you doing this morning?
Doing wonderful. How are you, sir?
I again a little bit tired, but hey, I'm hanging in there. I am hanging in there. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a long time, because what you and I have been talking about behind the scenes, I think, is really important. We've had this theme on the podcast every so many episodes. We want to help, younger growing attorneys develop their career, get things figured out, get promoted, build a client base. These are not things that are taught in law school, as you know, and you've been through a lot of this. So I'm anxious to get your thoughts on this. But before you do that, introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit about the firm and the types of cases that you handle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in our Fort Worth office, Name and Howell. We handle all kinds of litigation. We also do some transactional stuff. We've got over 70 lawyers in 4 cities, all in Texas. Do a lot of trucking, product liability, commercial litigation stuff. So interestingly, we worked together probably a few times early on in my career when I was an associate. And so we continue to work together as things have evolved and grown for me. So I'm on our executive committee and for the firm, and just looking forward to helping young lawyers continue to grow and evolve, and training them up and trying to help our clients as best we can.
Yeah, a constant issue that has popped up, and this is not just in the practice of law, it's across many industries, is that the younger folks don't want to work. They don't want to put in the time to get ahead. And that's been a struggle for not just law firms, but corporations across industries. I know you've worked your butt off to get where you're at, and I think that's awesome. But I also think, like I said before, a lot of things about career development, I imagine, are not getting taught in law school. You kind of have to learn as you go. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of maybe the early years at the firm, some of the challenges that you faced, and some of the things you did to get where you are today that maybe others didn't do, but were surely a benefit to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting out, I always had the entrepreneurial approach and tried to reach out and make connections and get people to send me cases, and realized as a young lawyer, that's a difficult task. When your title is associate, when you don't have the skins on the wall, when you haven't tried cases, and you haven't done that many depositions, you haven't attended mediation, the experience factor and the gray hair is kind of lacking. And for
Yeah.
whatever reason, people tend to trust gray hair more. And that a lot of times comes with experience. But what I figured out is you just have to hit the pavement running and you got to go hard. You have to meet people. And I learned very early that you don't meet people and ask them to send you cases. You don't just walk up to them and say, hey, I hear you work for such and such company and I'd love to do your work. You develop relationships, and over time, those turn into real trust relationships. And when they trust you and they know you and they like you, it turns into a long-term client relationship but a friendship more than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's developing relationships is key. I know when I was younger, I made every mistake possible, and that was the one. I was a little over enthusiastic, and yeah, it could be a turnoff if you're too aggressive. And I think developing that trust, over time, is certainly important. Can you talk a bit about networking and how to get your name? I think things like LinkedIn have been very helpful, but I think it's got to go beyond that, whether it be writing or getting involved at conferences. What are some of the things that you've done in the past and you're trying to mentor your younger folks with?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic. What can you do? And one thing, just to backtrack on your prior question, building a book of business is always a goal, right?
Yeah.
We reach out, and just because you get to a certain level, you're always going to want to continue to push. But I think what people fail to realize in two things. One, the journey that you're on in building the book of business may be more important than the book itself. And certainly the relationships and friendships you build with people along the way are far more fulfilling at the end of the day than any book, whether successful or not. I heard you in your last podcast say, if you bat 300, if you get 3 out of 10 hits, you're going
Hall
to
of
the
Fame. Hall of Fame, baby.
And you have to be willing to hear no a lot. And so if all you do is go out and try to build your book of business, and all you do is ask people to send you cases, and all you hear is no, then you're going to feel like a failure and out on an island. So if you build those relationships and you have a network of people that you can rely on and talk to and learn from and listen, do a lot more listening than talking, then you will be more fulfilled, and the work will come with that.
I think listening more than talking, particularly early on, is difficult, but I think you're right. I think it's very important, but you still have to be enthusiastic at the same time. So I think it's definitely a balancing act. Talk to me about kind of two things, because again, kind of where you're at right now. And again, you and I have been texting back and forth all week. You're kind of in the middle, right? You were the young guy. Okay. And now now you got over the hump, and I'm not saying you're the old guy. Now I do notice a little gray in your beard, by the way. Just want to throw that out there. Our listeners can't see that, but everybody on YouTube or on our website can. But how you used and maybe even sought out mentorship as a younger attorney, and how that works, and then in turn what you are doing now to the folks below you to provide the same.
Yeah, so I'd like to pick people's brains. I like to ask them a lot of questions and get them talking about what they do. And I have come across some fantastic examples around the country. In fact, have a group of friends from DRI that have poured into me, that have shared with me, that have told me what they've tried. And I can say, hey, we're trying this. What do you guys think? And they said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. Or we tried that 10 years ago and maybe it'll work for you, but it didn't work for us. But there's some real camaraderie and sharing amongst the defense bar that I think needs to become a more prominent aspect.
Agree.
We need to be more organized and be more willing to share with each other. And so, I hope to maintain that as I continue to transition into the older lawyer role. But I try to incorporate a lot of those things internally. I think a lot of times young associates or younger lawyers look internally in their own firm. And I think there's a wonderful opportunity there. I have a lot of partners that have done a lot of wonderful things, are very successful, served in prominent roles and leadership, tried a lot of cases, have really walked the path. But I think that younger lawyers sometimes think that's the only place to go to get mentorship or to ask questions, and they need to reach out externally as well as internally.
So I got off the phone with Mike Bassett, our very good friend, who's right down the street from you in Dallas. And he's been on the podcast several times. I've been on his podcast several times. And I told him you were coming on. And he said, I told him you're coming on. He's like, I love Shane. Shane's a good guy. He's like, you gotta surprise Shane with the question that he's not going to be ready for. So question is, he goes, you got to ask Shane about the time that out of the blue, you called Mike Bassett just to get his ear for an hour to ask questions, which is so smart. And again, I think most of the, maybe you stay within your firm and you ask the people above you, but I think it's smart to get other perspectives. And he said, you picked up the phone and you guys talked for an hour and you asked him key questions, and he was more than open and willing to talk to you. Tell us about that conversation and why you picked up that phone, because I don't think enough people do that.
Yeah, Mike is actually one of the examples that I was thinking of when we're talking about reaching out externally. He's a fantastic lawyer.
Yes.
He's a great mediator. He's very effective in everything that he does. He's built his firm over in Dallas into a real success story. And he's constantly utilizing younger lawyers and teaching them and training them. And that's the business model. And that's really my passion. And so I hope that I could derive something from him that he would share. And he was not open. I mean, he just opened the doors. He was not limited in any way, shape, or form. In fact, he sent me some of the stuff that they use to help train their lawyers, talked about structure and how often they do certain things and training. And we've taken some of those and implemented those. We were texting back and forth this week about checklists and workflows, and you can ask my associates here. I'm an anti-checklist person for one reason. I feel like young lawyers, especially with their lack of perspective on the cases, tend to look at it as a Lego instruction manual. IKEA. Yeah, you have to do step one before you can do step two. And if you don't do it in this order, then you're going to come out with something that doesn't look like a race car or a dresser or a bed. So, I really have emphasized to them, the case creates the checklist.
Yeah.
We look at the case and you look at all the possible options that you have for the case, and you start picking and pulling things, and you can have a checklist, but just because you have them in an order, it's kind of like some of the reptile stuff that we hear in deposition. Well, you ordered what you're supposed to do post-accident. You called it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your handbook. So you have to do it in that order. Well, no, that's not true. If we call them bullet points and we're going to check them off as we go, and you do all 5 of them, great. So, I go back to, it depends on the circumstances.
My favorite.
When it comes to checklist.
my favorite answer, right?
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about this several times in the podcast, and it's a plague at this point. What's your personal philosophy, and maybe even the firm's? How do you keep young talent? Because, man, these associates are bouncing around like jackrabbits from firm to firm. And I think, we just talked about some of the things you got to do, which, by the way, I covered on the last podcast. You're not getting paid to write an article or to go do a speech. I mean, this is beyond, you got this billable hour thing is kind of what runs everybody's lives. And so this requires some extra work. And I think a lot of young attorneys may experience failure early and then bail, right? I want to go someplace where I don't have to do that. What's your personal, maybe even the firm's philosophy on not just acquiring talent, but how do you keep them? How do you give them not necessarily a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but at least a path that's very well lit where they can feel good about staying versus this jackrabbit thing of hopping around that we've been seeing so much lately, because it's killing defense firms, absolutely killing the. Ask Bassett about this. It's so hard to keep these folks. Have you dealt with that issue? And what are some of your ideas on it?
Yeah, that is a real issue, especially when you're identifying good talent.
Yeah.
You find really good associates, they're going to be contacted frequently about other opportunities. So at one point, it's frustrating if you lose people, if they're being picked off or recruited away from you. At the same time, it kind of bolsters your approach to hiring, in that you're finding people that are attractive to other firms, so you're doing something right.
Yeah.
But how do you keep them? How do you keep them from leaving? And my biggest thing is transparency. I want them to know how they're doing at any point in time. I want them to ask questions. I want them to know where they are in the process, what I expect them to do, what is expected of me. We have one-on-ones where they can come in and ask any question they want. It can be case related. It can be practice related. I want to give them opportunities to go and do and get tangible experience, because ultimately, I don't want to hire a bunch of associates here. I want to hire future partners.
Yeah.
They can go out and get business and they have the experience that we've allowed them to cultivate, and we've gotten them in a place where people will trust them and send them cases, then that's great. But the number one most important thing to me, and the only way I've been able to maintain, and we've lost associates too. I mean, I'm not saying that we have 100% retention at all, but we have been able to keep some really good people around because of relationships. We emphasize the team.
Yeah.
Everybody on the team may play a different position, but you saw it, the Eagles-Cowboys game Sunday night. Lane Johnson goes out from right tackle, and all of a sudden Micah Parsons is taking the game over because Lane Johnson's not in there. Well, Jalen Hurts is still there, and everybody else on that offense was still there. But you lose Lane Johnson, and all of a sudden the game changes its complexity. Well, that's the same thing here. You've got legal assistants, they play certain roles, paralegals, everybody's on the team, associates, and they all play a very specific role, and they all have a different position, but they're all equally important.
How do you communicate? Because I think a huge problem, again, not just in the legal industry, but across the board, particularly post-COVID, a lot of people working remotely. How do you communicate with staff, associates effectively as we approach 2023? Because the one thing with this particular kind of newer generation in the workforce, is, I mean, I grew up old school. I'm a Gen Xer, and I mean, when my little league, Pop Warner football team, when we lost the championship game, I didn't get a trophy. Okay, I did not get a trophy. I got a big can of what from my dad and our coaches. And now people don't take constructive criticism particularly well. And that, I think, it's a huge part of development to be able to pull somebody aside and say, hey, yeah, you really sucked today, right? Like, go Nick Saban on him. Nick Saban's not pulling any punches, I'll tell you that right now. He's not giving any second place, trophies in the Alabama locker room after that last week. God, would you imagine being in that locker room? Good God. I don't know if you need an ambulance or a priest or whatever you need in the Nick Saban locker room, but he's laying down the law. How do you do that in a law firm, understanding the differences in this generation and their, let's just call them sensitivities, right? Versus you got a job to do and they need to get the feedback to grow.
Yeah, so that's a great question. One thing that I think is becoming a little bit of a problem is I think some firms are so afraid to lose people that they're not providing the constructive criticism that is needed to develop the associates.
Yeah.
And so I will sell that as a positive when we interview someone, and I'll say, look, you're going to hear from me, good, bad, or otherwise. you're going to hear from me. And if it's tough news, it's going to be tough news, but I'd rather us handle it. And then we move forward, you learn from it, and we don't make the mistake again.
Listen, I tell you what's happening, Shane. Okay. I mean, you know me and my sports analogies. Here's what you have in the legal industry right now. You've got the transfer portal, right? You can't, guy drops a ball, right? And you take him out of the game and you rip him on the sideline. Well, he's in the portal in 2 weeks. Like, I ain't dealing with this. I'll transfer from Baylor and I'll go to Oklahoma State. Screw you, right? I mean, that's what you're dealing with. And I think I think you're right. You have to be careful, but you have to also, and maybe, I don't know, in your hiring process, is that something that you cover to kind of get these new folks up to speed? Like, our job is to communicate with you. And part of that's going to be critical. Now, granted, you got to reward them and you got to give them all the positive feedback too. But do you do things early on to kind of get them ready for that?
Yeah, absolutely. You start from day one in the interview process. I don't want anyone joining our firm under any false pretenses, because that only sets everyone up for disappointment. And then they are going to hit the transfer portal before game 2.
Yeah.
And that doesn't do anybody any good.
No.
So I'm very upfront about our training and how we do that. I think the transparency and the relationship building and actually listening to them, hearing what's important to them, and wanting to be in a trust relationship with our associates and other employees is important, because they know whenever I come to them with some constructive criticism, it's more of like your parent is getting onto you. At the end of the day, they appreciate what's going on. They're there for you. They're supportive. They're not telling you that you're not doing anything of benefit, but they know that you're actually giving them this criticism for their own benefit, for their future progress.
Yeah. And it's the same thing this is all human behavior. This is all psychology. This is emotion. You and I have worked a lot together, and you and I have had to tell some pretty important people, i.e. witnesses, that you suck today. And here's why. And you may not like it, but that answer sucked. And you're going to have to suck it up, buttercup, and get better. And sometimes that doesn't come across, the right way, but I think it's so crucial. So I think it's all a balancing act. Effective communication, getting their feedback. I don't believe in sugarcoating things. I believe in being very direct. And if some folks can't handle that, maybe they're not a good fit for the firm, right?
Right. And sometimes, direct communication, the other side's not going to sugarcoat anything for you.
Yeah, they're not going to. Yeah, I'll tell you that much right now. Yeah.
You live in an adversarial world. You've got to be ready to hear hard things and bad news. One thing you said earlier about teaching witnesses to be evasive, I find that to be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting take on it. The way I've always couched it is we're teaching witnesses how to make sure they're telling the truth at all times.
Effectively, and not getting duped, cajoled, manipulated, which, by the way, that's reptile 101, right? And so I all the plant fraternals out there, nice try, but when you're asking these really highly inappropriate questions on a script, by the way, to lure them in, I mean, come on, we've been over this before. Shane, important question, because this is another struggle that I hear from partners all the time, and they beat their head against the wall. They pull their hair out. They say, I'm trying to develop my young attorneys, and my clients won't let me. They won't let me bill them out. They won't let me add them onto a case. And that's a big problem in the industry, isn't it? And how have you dealt with that? And maybe how do you communicate to your clients to say, yeah, it's going to come at an extra cost, but look at the future benefit to you as the client to have our team grow?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes with setting expectations early and communicating. And I'm lucky, fortunate and blessed to have clients that understand that, as the defense bar and as the attorneys in general age, they need someone else to be able to step in and do the things that these guys were doing. If you had somebody doing your work for 40 years and they retire,
now
I don't
what?
know where you go if they did all of it at all the time. So I think the communication and setting the expectation and having them involved in the process. To what extent do you want associates involved? How much can I have my young lawyers do? Where's your comfort level in terms of allowing them to do certain things? And that way, when they hear that your associate did this, that, and the other, it falls right in line with what their expectation is. And as they build that trust and as they see good work repeated over and over again, that bar will continue to raise where their threshold for allowing them to do certain things will continue to push up.
Agreed. Shane, do you have children?
I do.
How old are they?
11, 9, and 6.
God help you. God help you. How about some guidance on handle the work-life balance? It gets really difficult, particularly this time of year. Oh my gosh, the fall's always the worst. How do you do that and not make yourself? Trust me, I've missed many of little league games and basketball games because of this job, and boy, I kick myself sometimes. I try to make up for it in different situations. Kind of what's your personal philosophy on how to deal with that? Because man, that sucks sometimes. If you ever want to feel shitty, let down your kid. That's a kick in the balls.
Yeah, that's not a good feeling at all. Yeah, my thing is and my wife really is key in this because she helps me maintain perspective on what's important, right?
Yeah.
So our 8-year-old just turned 9 in September, and I kind of moped around for about half the day, and she was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "We're halfway to adulthood with him.
I know.
Have we done enough? He's 50% done. What are we going to do?" But the biggest thing I could say is, being in a profession that you get paid for your time.
Yeah.
And the only thing your kids really want or care about is your time.
Yep. It's a
direct conflict. But the best thing you can do is when you're there, you have to be there 100%.
Put the phone down. Put the phone down.
Be invested and let them know that you care, that you're there, and you're supportive. And, they understand. A little bit of forgiveness goes a long way when dad is in trial or dad's out of town and can't make it to something. But that's the biggest thing is whatever you do, make sure you've invested quality time in making sure that they understand that they're the number one priority at that point.
Yeah. And the next 5 to 7 years for you. Oh man, you're oh boy, you've got a heck of a, so I tell you a story. So my 14-year-old son, he's my younger son. He comes in and he's like, "Dad, can you take me to the store?" Like, the store? "Yeah, can you take me to the store?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. Wait. Walgreens, grocery? Like, where do you want to go? Wait, need shoes, whatever." "Well, I want to go to the mall." "Okay, well, what do you need?" "It's not important." I'm going, come on. I'm not just taking you to the mall. What do you need? And he kind of rolls his eyes like, "I want some cologne." I went, I don't really wear cologne at this point. I'm like, I can, I think I have some cologne I could dig. "Oh, no. And he said he went on YouTube. He's found this dude on YouTube or TikTok just breaking down all these different types, some it's sweet, some it's this, some it's that. And he has this cologne picked out. And I'm going, oh God, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this. I mean, at least at 14, the first thing going through my mind, I'm like, don't be asking me for condoms at 14. And I do not do, no. And do not talk to your mother about, I'm glad you came to me, but cologne. So yeah, I took him and, the kid's got cologne. So that's one of many issues I'm going to deal with. So you'll be dealing with that soon.
That's funny. At least worried about his personal hygiene and how others smell him.
Yes. Unlike my 21-year-old, I can smell him from about 100 yards away right now. I think this, he took over my man cave and I had to move my podcast studio, and it's like it smells and it looks like a dirty men's locker room over there.
Nice.
This is not good. All right. Well, let's end this podcast on some, the most important points. this season, and we're going to go two areas with this, Shane. And again, this is the most important part of the podcast. The college football season this year, by far, and if you disagree, go ahead, has been the nuttiest, craziest thing from week to week. I try to read, like, Saturday, college football is supposed to be my relaxation day. I need to be on blood pressure medication. It's like, good God, it starts at noon and then till midnight, nothing but craziness, right? So I want you to give me the, because it is early, but things are playing out here. I want you to give me your 4-team college football play. Okay, so it's October 20 is our recording. We'll release this in a couple of weeks. Go back and see you. I want you, and I'm gonna give you a little time here. I'm maximizing your cognition, Shane.
There you go.
College football picks, because I got some thoughts on this, on who's going to be in this, and who knows how long we'll have the 14 playoff anymore. But your 4 teams, because a lot of big games. Yeah, you still got Michigan, Ohio State coming up. You got a lot of things in the SEC playing out. You got USC had it going on till they shit the bed Saturday night. A lot of things going on. When it's all said and done, who are the 4 teams playing for the championship here?
Oh man, that's tough. We still have so much left. All of the head-to-head battles, conference championship games. I mean, you've got 3 SEC teams in the top 6.
Yeah.
And I saw something yesterday, I think, that showed how 3 ACC teams all have a shot.
Yeah.
At getting into the college football playoffs. So there's going to be a lot of turmoil over the next few weeks. I think that you're going to see, Tennessee looked pretty good, but Alabama hung right there with them.
What a crazy game. A crazy game. I was going insane during that game.
Man. You watch the field goal go through and the ball is spinning sideways and you're thinking, what in the world happened?
Worst field goal attempt, worst highlight in history. He knuckleballed it through, and the moment it left his foot, I'm like, that's short. It's short. It's short. Oh my gosh.
Apparently Alabama got a hand on it, and maybe that's what caused it to spin sideways like that, but not enough of a hand to not make it come up short. But Tennessee looked really good, and they've got Hayden Hooker, the quarterback.
Yeah,
he's a stud, man. He's a difference maker.
Yes, he is.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them kind of as a dark horse candidate and make it through, beat Georgia, and end up in the SEC championship game. And it may be a situation where you might have 2, whoever plays in the SEC championship game
every year.
Teams may make it
every year.
Part is you may have a team that has 1 loss that deserves to make it from the SEC that doesn't play in the championship game.
It's insane. It's insane right now. I mean, they're just loading the top 10 right now. I don't know. Okay, give me your 4. Who you got?
All right, I'm gonna go Ohio State. I'll say Tennessee makes it in there. And I think Alabama will figure it out because, like you said, Nick Saban isn't handing out any participation awards.
Oh,
this week.
No, he's not.
I think you'll see them bounce back pretty significantly. And for the 4th team, I wasn't big on this team at the beginning of the year, but I think they've got it figured out and they have a fantastic coach, lots of talent. I think Clemson's going to sneak in there at the 4th spot.
Okay, I fully respected your picks up until that point. Clemson is boy, I'm going to get so butchered for this. Oh God. But my heart, this is my heart, not my brain. I think the Tar Heels are going to take down Clemson and Charlotte on December 5th, I think.
That would make things interesting.
That'd make things very interesting.
I'm kind of just rooting for more chaos at this point.
I think you're going to get chaos. Okay, I got your picks written down. Here's where I'm going. Ohio State is very, very pissed off from last year, and they keep their mouth shut this year, and they're just steamrolling. It's going to be ugly. I think they're going to humiliate Michigan this year after losing. No. They are not happy, and I think they're just going to run away with this, and I think that's your number 1 seed. So I think we're on the same page there. I also agree, whether they're the 2 seed or they drop down to the 4 because they lose in the SEC championship, I really like Tennessee. I really like Tennessee. If you saw, they tore down the goalpost, they threw them in the river. I don't understand. Listen, I'm not going to pick on the intellect of Tennessee grads, fans, students, but to tear down the goalpost and then you throw them in the river, kind of didn't see that coming. Not really sure kind of where that gets you. So, but I have OSU and Tennessee.
They were smart enough to start a GoFundMe page to get the goalpost put back.
Yeah.
up.
By the way, their annual revenue at the University of Tennessee Athletic Department, $93 million, and they start a GoFundMe page. Screw you, Tennessee. No, you pay for it and you deserve it, right? And just pay the $150 to get those things back up there. Georgia's been quiet. Georgia's bouncing back from this. Okay, they're going to figure it out, and I've got Bama out. I got Bama out. I don't think the offensive, that Bama quarterback's been taking a beating, an epic beating every week. And I love that quarterback. I think the O-line, and by the way, Alabama and the Tennessee, get ready for this, 15 penalties. You want to piss off Nick Saban? 15 penalties. Not going to happen. I got Georgia. So my two SECs are Tennessee and Georgia, and I have Clemson out, and I'm going to throw a real curveball in here. And I'm going to do this for my assistant, Lori, who's my work wife, my best friend. This is going to rub you the wrong way for sure. TCU is going to sneak in. Come on. What do you mean? They just had an epic win against Oklahoma State was it double overtime? Come on.
Oh, it was a good game, but I went to Baylor, so I can't openly cheer for TCU. I am in Fort Worth, so there's some great things, and TCU is a great program, and Sonny Dykes definitely has them playing at a very high level. Max Duggan, that quarterback, looks like he's had a career revitalization with Sonny over there. They are playing really good football.
They were dead in the water in the first half at home against Oklahoma State. But here's the thing. I think to go all the way, or at least to get in the play, you have to have that one game you should lose and you somehow pull it out. TCU's done that. That's my pick.
I don't disagrry with the quality of the pick. I just can't do it.
Well, we will see. We'll be talking. We may have to adjust these picks as Shane Odell. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was fantastic. Great information for law firms, for young attorneys, and for guys like you. We certainly want to have you back on because I think we want to do a panel to discuss these. Maybe we bring Bassett on with you. That would be nice.
That'd be great. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Hey, one thing you talked about in your prior episode, just the previous episode about publication. So I'm the editor of the DRI trucking publications. And so anybody has article ideas or they want to get published in DRI, we've got opportunities galore. So reach out, contact me, and we'll see how we can get you an opportunity to be published. Because I agree with you. I think that is a real, genuine way to set yourself apart and give you the appearance that you're an expert in your field. Is to publish some of these organizations. So
absolutely. Shenodell, thank you. To our audience members, including plaintiff attorneys, hey, we love you. Thank you so much for participating in this week's edition of the Litigation Psychology Podcast. See you next time.